Okay, so here's my contour drawing of the balloons, and I do have the picture pulled up, and you can also pull up your picture so you have it available for you. When you are working with your color pencils, you want to make sure that you are using all your primaries, secondaries. So you have, of course, the balloons are red, yellow, and blue. You also need to have green, orange, and violet as well, or purple. You also will need white. Now, when you use a white, there are Crayola whites, and they kind of work. But you may also want to use one of the Prisma whites if they're available. Of course, what's there is there. So make sure you don't take these color pencils home, put them in your portfolio, in your book bag, and lose them, play with them, because you're going to need these to do your drawings. So make sure you leave them in the classrooms. Do not take them home. Now, feel free to go to the store and buy your own color pencils, and you have them, and you can do what you need to do. Alright, so the first thing you want to do is start by putting the base color. And I'm just going to kind of start over here in the corner and kind of work my way across and kind of let you see kind of what's going on. What you will notice is the contour that I have, it's pretty light. And I did kind of include the folds. So if all you have is just the outline and you don't have the folds in there where the shadows go, you may want to include those because they will help you out. I did erase out my grid. Make sure you erase out your grid before you start adding your color. And I do have my pencil and my eraser ready just in case I need to erase some of these lines, especially on the lighter balloons like the yellows. The darker ones are not necessary. So I'm going to start off by just kind of putting in a base color. So I'm taking my red and I'm doing this red balloon. And I want to go right up to the edge of that line, and I'm just lightly putting in a value of red. Again, this is a base color. That I want to use. And I'm trying to color the same direction for the most part to keep it nice and even. And I'm coloring light enough that I can still kind of see where my pencil lines are. Of course, my pencil lines are very, very light, so the color is not a lot of black pencil in there to mix in with my color. But it's enough there so I can still see where my lines are going to be, where my shadows are going to be. Alright, once I have a nice even tone with that red color, the next thing I'm going to do is go to the complement of red. Alright, so you should have already completed your color wheel and your color schemes, so you should know what the complement of red is. Now, one thing you want to know about this is you will not use black color pencil. So I literally have red, orange, yellow, green, blue, violet, and I have white. I'm not using black at all. Okay? If I just have to have black, I will use it very much at the very end of the drawing. But you should be able to not use black. Black will run out, you won't have any more, and if that's the only thing you use to make your darks, you're going to be lost. So for our darks in this particular drawing, we're going to use the complement. So the complement of red, of course, is green. So I'm going to take my green out, and what I'm going to start doing is kind of putting in this green for where my shadows are. Alright, so the first thing I know is there's a shadow here on the side of this balloon that kind of fades out. It kind of goes along the side here. So I'm just taking this green. And I am going to make sure it's even and it's transitional. And my colors will be layered. So that's also a good thing I want to do, is layer my colors. There's also a shadow that goes right here along the side, and then it kind of comes away from the, I guess, the shadow from the blue balloon onto the red. Again, yes, you're drawing with me, but you also should be looking at your picture, because again, you have 2 more of these and you'll be doing those completely on your own. So the understanding is, the darker I color my green, the darker my red's going to be. So remember, eventually I'm going to saturate my colors. And we talked about saturation earlier in the year when we were making tints and shades. And saturate means I color completely as dark as I can. And I will end up saturating my colors. So that means that the darker my green is, the darker that red's going to be in that area. Also, when you're creating this, I don't want this to be solid, just that dark red. So there is a little bit of orange that I see in the red balloon. It's not quite a perfect orange. It's more of a really red orange. So I'm going to put a little layer of orange in this as well. So I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to put the layer of orange in. Again, I'm just layering my colors right now. Haven't really saturated anything just yet. The one areas I am paying attention to is where my white is going to be, because my white shouldn't have a lot of other colors saturated there. Now the white on the red balloon and the white on the blue balloon looks very different, and that's because it still has a little bit of that color underneath it. So while I definitely will have these light values everywhere, I don't want to saturate red where I want my white highlight to be. I want to make sure that when I saturate that, it's going to be saturated with my red. Now otherwise, the green that I put in, I am going on top of that green with my orange. So I'm not coloring around it, I'm just coloring right through it. Right now it's still layering, which means it got to go on top of each other. So I'm not avoiding the green when I'm putting in this orange. Alright, so now you're kind of starting seeing the three-dimensional form, even though it's very, very light. So now I'm going to come with my red, and I'm going to start saturating. So when I get ready to start saturating this, the first thing I'm going to do is make sure I go along the edge here. I want to make a nice sharp edge where my red balloon ends, because I know that here is going to be a yellow balloon. And I don't want to have that be a blurry line. We want it to be in focus. And then I'm going to start coloring from that line. And I am coloring pretty darkly. Now, because this area is really, really a dark red, I press pretty dark. It's not completely saturated yet, but it's pretty dark. And I'm kind of going to where my shadows are. So I know there's a shadow here, and again, it's also the edge, so I'll make sure this is a nice sharp line. Because again, I have the blue balloon here, and I have the red balloon here, and I want to make sure there's sharp lines to separate them two. Shadow comes up here where that green is. I'm gonna let that shadow kind of come up in there. Now here I didn't make a sharp line because I don't want that, you know, the balloon doesn't have a sharp line going in there unless it's a really strong fold, which there may be in some of these balloons. That is not a really sharp fold, so I don't want to make that edge a sharp edge. So see how it's very blurred, out of focus, and I can let it blend out. Now you notice I'm using a circular motion to help with my blends. And then I'm just lightly putting in a nice little layer, another layer of red. Again, you start seeing the white parts emerge where I know I want my highlights to be. So as I'm coloring this around and I'm letting them blend together, I am recognizing based on my picture where I want my highlights to be. And I'm making sure those areas are left unsaturated, so when I add my white in there, that white actually stands out. There is a red-orange colored pencil that you can use in this, which would make life a lot easier. But I didn't want to bring out the red-orange until necessary. So since I know I got to mix red and orange anyway, I might as well just use the red-orange colored pencil. So that's what I went and got, the red-orange. Now you gotta be careful because red-orange very much looks like red if you don't have red right next to it. So when you actually have red and you color red, you can recognize red versus red-orange. But sometimes you have orange and you have red-orange, you think you're coloring red and you're not. And so now I'm starting to saturate. Saturating meaning I'm taking all the white paper and I'm coloring it out so it's just full color and you don't have any white remaining. Again, this yellow balloon is here. I want to make sure I make that a nice sharp line. So I'm going to take this. And what you're starting to see is that green that I had initially, it's still under there. And it's making that red darker in that area. And as I come out here where there is no green, the red is just red. When you work in the subtle color changes of a drawing that's in full color like this is, using analogous colors, so of course this is red, so to use red, orange, and orange are analogous. That helps create the nice transitions of value within just the reddish part. And then of course, as you go into the darker areas of that same object where the shadow really hits, then you're talking about using the complementary color, which is the opposite on the color wheel. So when you're drawing something red, you definitely use red, use red, orange, use orange. And to make for the shadows, you use green. And so you very much have what ends up becoming like a split complementary color scheme, or complementary color scheme with analogous colors. And that's really how you get that done. So now I'm ready to start kind of creating my highlight. So first thing I want to do is make sure that it's not just a white spot within this. So in these light areas where I've left them, I am coming in with my red, orange, and I'm starting to give them a little bit more of a darker tone. I don't want that white to be like completely just white in there. And you could just leave it that way and not blend it out. You may really like that I tend to like to mix the white in there and really make it look really good. So what I'm going to do is mix in some white. So first I want to make sure I get that the highlight looking the way I want it to look, and then I'm going to introduce the white. Alright, so here we go. Get my white. My white is nice and sharp. And what I'm going to do is just kind of go over my main white area, and then just kind of use it and like lightly go over my light areas. And it gives it a very saturated, smooth look. Now I don't want to take that white and just go ridiculous all over the place. I just want to use it just where I need to use it, just to make that light area more saturated and smooth. Just like the darker color area, the red area and the dark area is nice and saturated, I can make the highlight nice and saturated. And once I have that in there, I can always come back. If I don't want it to be too light, which I don't think it's super light, I'm going to come back and just add a little bit more color to that area. So I'm just bringing the color back in and just kind of going around it and kind of control my highlight a little bit more. If there is an area that's kind of sharp where it's like a really strong highlight, then I can add a little bit of color right around it like this and make that line look more crisp. If I got too light and I need to get a little darker, I can just kind of shade a little bit on top of it. And there you have that first balloon. It's red. That's how you do your red areas.